Okay, welcome back, kiddos. Now we are moving on to our last unit in chapter 3. So this is going to be writing the equations of these parallel and perpendicular lines. So we've talked about parallel and what perpendicular is. So let's refresh in case we have forgotten. Okay, so we said parallel lines are the same, right? Same slope. Okay, and parallel lines have two lines that will never intersect. Okay, and we're going to show parallel lines with this symbol right here, right? Perpendicular slopes are opposite reciprocals, right? Opposite reciprocals. Okay, opposite means we need to change the sign, right? So if it is a positive, we're going to turn it into negative. Okay, or if it's negative, that means we're going to turn it into positive. Reciprocal means to flip the number. Okay, but remember, we may need to make a fraction first. May need to make a fraction first. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So instead of positive 1 over 4, it's going to be negative 4 over 1, right? Or just negative 4. Okay, instead of positive 2 over 3, it's going to be negative 3 over 2. Instead of negative 7, it's going to be positive 1 over 7, right? Because that's a negative 7 over 1. Instead of negative 1, it's going to be positive 1, right? Because instead of negative 1 over 1, it's going to be positive 1 over 1, which is equal to just 1. Okay, so that's what we need to remember. Okay, so parallel lines are the same. Perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals, and we know it makes a 90-degree angle when we look at it, just like that. Okay, so let's talk about these other slopes that we talked about. If it goes up, we're going to describe that as positive, right? Okay, if it, as we go to the right, if it goes down, we're going to say that is negative. Okay, if it goes straight up and down, that is undefined slope. Undefined slope, because that means we divide by 0. Okay, divide by 0. You can't do it, so that gives us a undefined error. Okay, so if we have some sort of number right here, and we're dividing by 0, that's going to be undefined. Okay, and then we have this kind of slope, which is 0 slope, right? 0. All right, so keeping that in mind, we have those 4 slopes: positive, negative, undefined, and 0. Okay, so let's talk about writing the equation of a line. Okay, so if we're given the slope in the y-intercept, we can write slope-intercept form. Okay, that's when we're given the slope and given the y-intercept. So if we're given those, we can just do that. Okay, and we're going to put it in this form: y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. Okay, so it's always the number in front of the x. The b is the y-intercept. Okay, and so that's going to be the, we would say the slope is m, right? Y-intercept is b. Okay, and the a better way of saying it is this, right? So mx plus b. We're going to say m is the in front of the x, right? In front of the x, and the b is the plane number. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're just going to think, what is the m value and what's that b value? Everything else will be written the same. Okay, so let's look at this. Write the equation of a line in fully simplified, right? So that means reduced fractions. Okay, in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form means we need to have that form, right? Y equals mx plus b. And remember, we said we're going to just substitute right there and right there. So let's go ahead and write that down. Y equals, and have a blank for the x, right? So y equals, right? So the slope, let's calculate the slope. We need to find the slope, right? And we need to find the y-intercept. Right? So the slope, let's do our slope triangle. right? So let's go and think. We're going to draw a triangle just like that, right? So the rise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rise is 5, right? The run is how much? Okay, run is 2, right? So if it's rise over run, then our m value is 5 over 2. Now, if I find the two closest points, this will be simplified. Okay, if I use this point and this point, I have to simplify it. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay, if you're not sure about simplifying. Okay, and I know that's simplified because 5, you can't go any less than that, right? Good. So if my slope is 5 over 2, let me write that down, 5 over 2. My y-intercept, right? Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, right? So the y-intercept is 5, right? So our b value is equal to 5, right? So if the b value is 5, let's go write our equation. Y equals, for the m value, we're going to put 5 halves, and then x, and then plus 5. Okay, so that's our answer. Y equals 5 halves x plus 5. Okay, so it says write the equation of a parallel line with a y-intercept of 1. Okay, so once again, we need to find our m value and our b value, right? So let's think about this. Actually, let's do this. We're going to think the first slope, the new slope, and then our y-intercept. Okay, so if it's parallel to that, so if our first slope is 5 over 2, if it's parallel, we know it's the same, so it's also going to be 5 over 2, right? The y-intercept is negative 1, so let's write our equation. We're going to say if it's y equals mx plus b, right? We're going to say y equals 5 halves x minus 1 now. Okay? Then, what if it's perpendicular? Right? Let's do the same thing, right? Perpendicular we know is opposite reciprocal, right? Okay, so we're going to say that our first slope is 5 over 2. Our new slope, instead of positive 5 over 2, is negative 2 over 5. Our y-intercept is 3. So if we write y equals mx plus b, let's write that out. Y equals, our m value is now negative 2 over 5, x plus 3. Okay, so that's how we can write it from just an equation right there. All right, so that being said, let's go ahead and keep it moving. Now we're going to talk about point-slope form. So we said slope-intercept form is if they give us the slope and they give us the y-intercept, we're going to say, cool, the easiest thing I can do is this. Okay, if they want the equation of a line in point-slope form, that's when we don't have the slope and the y-intercept. We have the slope and a point that's on the line. So we use point-slope form when we're given a point on the line and the slope of the line, right? So a point on the line and the slope on the line is why we call it point-slope. Okay, so m is going to represent the slope, right? Just like we talked about. So m right over here. Okay, the x1 and y1 that we have here represent the x and y coordinates of the point that is on the line. Okay, so we're going to take the point and the slope that they give us, and we're just going to input it right here. Okay, so let's break it down. Okay, so it says, what is the equation of a line that goes to this point? So they give us a point and is parallel to this line. Okay, so they don't actually give us the slope yet. The first step is we need to solve for y. Okay, it's because we can only tell what the slope is when it's y equals. Okay, when it's y equals, the number in front of there is the slope. This is not y equals. So we need to solve for y to make it y equals. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this together. All right, so the first step is we are going to do the inverse of x. Inverse of x, right? So let's go ahead and draw our line over there. The inverse of this is a positive 1x, right? Inverse of positive 1x is negative 1x, right? Okay, so then I'm going to, if I put it over here, I have to put it over here, but this is a numbers column. I'm going to think of a X column right over here. So I'm going to put it to the right. So put to right. Put to the right. Okay. Then our next step is to, after we do that, those cancel out, right? I'm going to bring down, that's a negative 1y, right? Equals 2 minus 1x. Okay. So our next step is to divide with the coefficient of y. Okay, so that's the number in front of the y variable, right? So the first thing is inverse of x. Next, we're just going to divide. So if I divide by that inverse, that's going to be negative 1, right? So then if I divide this side by negative 1, I have to divide the whole side here by negative 1 also, not just 2, and not just this. So I'm going to say 2 divided by negative 1, and then negative 1x also divided by negative 1. Okay, so now we just go from left to right. So I'm going to think, what is negative 1 divided by itself? That cancels, and I'm left with just the y, right? Negative 2 divided, 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. If I'm not sure, I put it in my calculator. Negative 1 divided by negative 1. That gives me positive 1, and then I write the x. Okay, so first thing I want to do is solve for x. Second thing is I want to find my slope, original slope, and I want to figure out my new slope. Okay, so my original slope is the number in front of the x, right? Our original slope is 1. Okay, if it's parallel, my new slope is also 1. Okay, so then the next step is our final step. We're going to write in point slope form. Okay, so what is point slope form? It is this right over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down. We're going to do step number 3 right over here. Okay, so we're going to say y minus y1 equals m times quantity x minus x1. Okay, so let's just plug in right over here. Okay, remember, just right over there, we're going to fill in the stuff. So we're going to say y minus, okay, the y value of our point. We're going to remember that x comes first, then y comes second. So we're going to put 6, okay, equals the slope. Okay, the slope that we were going to use. We said our new slope is 1 times quantity x minus, okay, the x value is 2. Okay, they wanted the equation in point slope form, so that's our answer. Okay, so it's as simple as that. We want a point in the slope, so we're going to find the slope that we're going to use. It says parallel, so we need to solve for y first, figure out the slope, then find the same slope, then just put it in. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's do another problem. Similar, we're just with the perpendicular. Okay, so on this one, it wants the equation of a line once again, and the information they give us is a point and perpendicular to this. Okay, so we're going to think that's point slope in the opposite reciprocal, not the same, right? Opposite reciprocal. Okay, so first step, we're going to solve for y, right? Same thing. So solve for y. So we're going to draw that down. So we're going to say the inverse of x, right? Negative 1x. Okay, then negative 1x. Okay, then we're going to do our first step, then our second step, right? So those cancel, bring down 4y, and that's a 8 minus 1x. I don't want to subtract 1 from 8 and think 7, right? Okay, then we're going to do inverse first, right? Then we're going to divide. Okay, we're going to say you're going to divide that side by the coefficient, right, which is 4. Divide that by 4, divide that by 4. That cancels. Y equals, if we put that into our calculator, 8 divided by 4 gives us 2, right? Negative 1 divided by 4. If we put that in our calculator, we know 1 cannot be reduced, so it has to be the same. Okay, so our slope is, now we're on step number 2, right? M1 and M2. Let's go and write those down. What do you think M1 is? That's right, it's not 1/4, it's negative 1 over 4. So M2, instead of negative 1 over 4, is positive 4 over 1, or just 4. Okay, so that's the slope we're going to use. That's the point we're going to use. Now let's write it in that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 form, right? We're going to say y minus the y1 value of 6 equals our new slope of 4 times x minus x1 of 2. Okay, and that's our answer. So we're going to use new slope. All right, so that's it. I know you got this. If you have any questions, just let me know.